Good morning and welcome to Fascism, What to Do. I'm hoping this is going to be a fun, interactive class. I'd love for you to put some comments in there about what you think and what you're doing with fascism, about fascism today, and how we can all work together to bring America back to democracy. So let's get started here. Hopefully we can, from here, see everything together. We shall see how this goes. All right. So I am going to advance through a few slides. I'm going to talk through them with you. But like I said, the comments are really where I want to see you all be able to give back to this presentation about what you're doing. What are you doing to help and what can other people do? So, oh, interesting. All right. So let's talk about this. This is my second course. I'm trying to develop a series of courses, and I'm just testing out a bunch of different ways of doing this. This is my first live course. I actually have a course that is pre-recorded on my channel if you want to check that out, and I'm going to connect this up to my website. So what makes me qualified to talk about fascism? First of all, I am a federal employee. I took a vow to protect the Constitution of the United States, and I feel that fighting fascism is part of that. It makes me a patriotic American to stand up for democracy, which is what America is about. I also have done a lot of reading and discussions, and I hope that I can share with you some information that's going to help you to see what we all can do to make this life a little better. So this is a very long definition of our fascism, and I'm going to paste this, I think, into the comment boxes so you can kind of see. All of this is linked back. I literally went to Wikipedia and said, what is fascism? And had it give me a definition that's very long and it gives you a lot of information. But here's the thing. Fascism is about ruling for the ruler, not for the people. So the American president and administration is supposed to serve the American people. America is not a business. We're not here to make a profit. We're here to make sure that our people are being served, that our people are healthy, they are being fed and housed, and we are protecting their rights, their right to pursue happiness. So there's a lot of what that means. We want to keep people safe, we want to keep people secure, but we want to make sure we're also giving them their freedoms. And what they'll often do is with fascism is they'll make it sound like that's what they're doing, but when you actually look at the deeds they're doing, they are not protecting the American people. They are regimenting things. They try to make a lot of rules about what you're allowed to say. Journalists are not allowed. You're not allowed to criticize Tesla. You're not allowed to protest this. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that, because they're trying to control all of the factors they can. They also want to make sure that, it's all about particular groups of people, in this case, typically cis heterosexual white males running society, and that the rest of us are not so important. That's why DEI was one of the first things they got rid of. That's why they won't rule out going back to racial segregation, because for them, that's part of fascism, is wanting to have a particular group of people rule the country and the rest not count. That's why they're also trying to make it more difficult to vote. That's why they're making it so that we are not that involved in the world anymore, like taking away USAID. They are suppressing the opposition in as many ways as they can, telling you that journalists are, left-wingers and that they're not telling you the truth, and they're trying to undermine those institutions to help us to be better. So what can you do? What can you do? What should you do? I'm going to offer you some ideas. So here's the thing. You can do something, regardless of your wealth, regardless of your place in the world, regardless of your age, your ability, anything like that. You just have to figure out what options work for you and try not to be afraid. Authoritarianism, fascism runs on fear. They want you to be afraid. They want you to be unsure. They want you to be unclear about what's happening so that you don't do anything. And something is better than nothing. But you need to be aware of where your vulnerabilities are and what where the parameters of your life are. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you are housebound, for example, maybe you can't get out of the house, but there are things you can still do. Maybe you have a hard time talking like this and you don't want to go on videos and educate people. There's nothing wrong with that either. You can do that. But let's see what else you can do. So I'm going to give you 10 ideas on how you can make a difference. And those differences are going to be your words and your action. And number 3, to make sure you get that it is patriotic to engage in resistance to fascism. It is our duty as Americans to question our leaders and to make sure we're all getting a part of the American pie. It is our duty to resist fascism. So let's get started. So a lot of these you're going to find if you've read any books on tyranny, or if you've heard about On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder, for example, or How to Overcome Fascism. You'll recognize a lot of these. The very first one, and the one you probably hear the most overall in society, is do not obey in advance. So what does that mean? So that means if you have a company and you have a DEI policy, unless you're specifically told that you cannot have that policy, leave it. If you're a legal office and you have a client you want to defend, or you want to, in whatever side of the political spectrum they're on, you can do that. But don't not take the client in advance because you think, oh, they won't like that. So when you find yourself going, oh, I don't know if the administration is going to like that, that's obeying in advance. And they've made it so that they make you uncomfortable. So you're like, oh, maybe if I just do these things, I can kind of hide over here and they're never going to know where I am. And they're not going to see me and I'm not going to get persecuted. That's not true. They're coming for all of us who aren't cis heterosexual white males. All of us. In fact, they're coming for anyone who's, even if you're a cis heterosexual white male, but you're educated, they don't like that either. Because it all comes down to they want you to be afraid and do what you think they're going to do, which is often worse. So you're giving them grounds. You're telling, when you obey in advance, what you're actually saying to them is, I'm going to give you this much ground. You don't even have to fight for that. And then they'll go a step further. So rather than saying, I'm giving you no ground, you have to fight for every inch of what you want to change in this country that I don't agree with. When you agree in advance, you are limiting your opportunities to say no to them. So don't obey in advance. Number 2, defend the institutions. Did you know that often they will try to undermine institutions, saying things like, oh, there's all these people committing fraud to get Social Security. Let me tell you, there is not. Social Security has a very low fraud rate. When they say things, well, there's like people who are over 100. Yes, who collects because they're still alive. I watched one on the news the other night. She flies all the time. She's 104 years old, and she often flies from Texas to Florida, and she gets stopped all the time now by TSA, who doesn't believe that she's 104. I've also seen where they're, Social Security, these people are over 100. My grandmother's over 100, and she gets Social Security, as she should. She paid into Social Security when she worked, and then when my grandfather worked, he paid into Social Security. Now that he's passed, she gets his Social Security because she stayed home and raised their children, and she is entitled. That is her money. It's not the government's money. We are simply returning people's money to them through Social Security. People under the latest one is, well, there's kids like 9 years old getting Social Security. That just goes to show you they don't really understand how Social Security works. Did you know if you have a parent pass away before you're 18, you are entitled to their Social Security? And entitled is not a bad word. Those people, the parent, paid into the system. And the government has been holding that money. And now that that person has passed away, it is their duty to give it to those children. It doesn't make up for them losing a parent, but it can help them to have a little bit of a better life that their parent would have given them if they were still around. So defend the institutions. Don't just agree when they say, the federal government is bloated, the National Park Services are overstaffed. 90%, a lot of that's not true. And so find the institutions that you care about, dig in, do the research, learn about them, and then defend them. So when someone says to you in a conversation, where did that come from? You have facts to back up your point of view. So if you care about vaccines, dig in, find out about vaccines. And whenever someone posts anything or says something to you that is not true about vaccines, you have facts and figures and information to combat and defend those institutions. Number 3 being stand out. What does that mean? It means not backing down, but often it is that one singular voice of truth that will help others to be encouraged. When I teach classes a lot, I always say, if you have a question, please ask, because you asking the question, there are probably other people with the same question, but they don't ask it because of whatever reason. So you're helping everybody if you do that. So stand out, ask the questions, do the research, put your hand up. It's okay. We want you to be there. Be kind in language. This is an interesting one. What you'll find is that it's really good to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it. In the On Tyranny book, they often talk about this, and I found it interesting. They're trying to actually narrow our conversations to a lower level of language. So use your own words. Read books, learn new concepts, learn new words, and use those in our language. It actually helps society to be better educated, and that's about dealing with our language. Number 5 is about investigating, asking questions. Someone presents you with a fact. First question I always ask is, well, could you show me where you got that information from? I'd like to see it. They often can't produce a source. I heard it on the news. Okay, well, if you don't have a reliable source that that you can write down, a website you can refer me to, like, how do you know this information is true? And when you're investigating, remember to look at the source of the information. Is it always benefiting one party of the political system? That's probably not the best. If it sometimes goes either way, which you'll see, then that's okay too. And you should make sure you're asking the questions. I ask a lot of questions. It sometimes annoys people, but I come from an auditing background, and so our job was always to investigate. How did you get that number? Where did that number come from? How did you decide? How was that decision made to change that policy? What are the impacts of that policy across your multiple areas or offices? Things like that. And asking all of those questions means I get better information to make better decisions. Number 6, make small talk and eye contact. One of the things they say about bad actors, people who are going to cause trouble, whether that be at a church or in a political rally or even at the grocery store, is it can often be diffused by simply looking them in the eye and saying, good morning, how are you? They train church greeters often to, number 1, make people feel welcome by saying, seeing them, looking them in the eye. I see you as a person. But number 2, they do that so that you can root out bad actors. If Julie here is a very nice person, great, that she's going to feel incredibly welcome. But if Stan is not a good person and Stan is trying to make trouble, but he sees me and I see him and he knows I'm looking at him, I can describe what he's wearing. I can describe what he looks like. That's going to decrease the chances of him causing a problem. So making small talk and eye contact can diffuse situations that can quickly get out of hand. Number 7, practice corporeal politics. What does that mean? It's a nice big word. Corporeal means in body. Show up if you can. April 5th, there's going to be a ton of big protests going on. The more people that show up for those, the better. Media coverage is kind of So if you have Facebook, you have TikTok, you have Blue Sky, and you can stream or take photos or any of those kind of things happening, increasing the awareness that people are not happy with what's happening in America, that fascism is not the path we want to go down, that can help the cause. So show up, make the posters, spend the time if you are able. Remember, this is about if you are able and capable and you're not vulnerable. If you are limited in mobility, you may not want to go to a protest in person, and that is okay. That does not mean you're not doing what you can. It's all about doing what you can. So you can contribute to good causes. So that could be monetarily, giving to like Indivisible or ACLU. I always recommend, if you don't know much about ACLU, watch the movie The American President. And there's a really interesting, just a couple lines in the movie about ACLU that made me think, yeah, that's why you contribute to the ACLU. But let's say you don't have a lot of money. You can still help with things like postcard writing. There's postcarding campaigns, often for elections, and they need people to write the postcards. Now, they do want you to pay for the postage, but I often just go on Facebook and say, hey, I'm doing 200 postcards for democracy for Wisconsin races. Does anyone want to contribute to the stamps? And then I've had people I haven't talked to or seen in 20 years send me $10 to say, yeah, let me cover some stamps. I'd love to. You can do that from home. All you have to be able to do is get mail and send out mail. And that's it. So look into that if that's something you can do. Learning from people in other countries. Americans are very cut off often from other countries. You need to get on World Talk if you're on TikTok, or get on YouTube or other places and look up democracy and Germany, fascism in Germany. Look up, what other people are saying about what's happening in the United States. It gives you a much different view than you hear just from the media and other people in the United States. And you can really learn a lot about what they're doing. To me, it was really inspirational to see the French women protesting topless. Okay, it's France. They're a little more open with that. But I thought that I would not feel comfortable doing that, but I felt so inspired by the fact that they were protesting in the streets like that. If you Google it, you can probably see it if you want to, like, if you don't, and their bodies were painted. It was just amazing. I really would say it's a great way to think through these things. And last but not least, of course, be as courageous as you can. Keep that in mind. Anything is better than nothing. So what can you do? I would also recommend some reading. I have read the first 2 books on this list on tyranny and how fascism works, both excellent reads. And I highly recommend Fascism, A Warning by Madeleine Albright. I haven't finished it yet, but I've heard nothing but great things. So I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you learned a little bit. And I'd love to hear in the comments for the video, what are you doing? What are ideas that you would like to see done? What would you like? What are you participating in? Maybe you have some ideas that you can share with someone else that they can do better. I am doing this. I am sharing the information I have. I'm going to protest. I've been to a few already. I will continue to go to those. I am standing up, standing out. I am being corporeal in politics. I am looking people in the eye and saying, I see you. And you can do that too. There is no one coming to save us. America has to save itself. And it is our duty as Americans to defend democracy. So thanks for coming. I hope you learned something. I hope it was helpful. And I look forward to hearing what you're doing.